This episode of the SwitchCast is produced by Lotta Hart, I mean Dakota Hart, our honored Patreon member and Switch Knight.
I understand that reference.
Hi everybody, I'm KC.
And I'm JV.
And this is the SwitchCast, the podcast for the Nintendo Switch Maverick. And how is our own resident Maverick Hunter doing this week?
Oh, I like that a lot. I wasn't quite sure what you were going for, but I understand. I dig it. I'm doing really well, KC. I just got confirmed that our PAX West panel is finally approved, and I'm gonna be in Seattle.
Oh, you're going to actual PAX Prime.
Well, it's not Prime anymore. It's West.
Okay, it's PAX West. Okay, right. You know what? I forgot totally that was something that was even on your radar. But yeah, that's pretty cool. What kind of panel are you doing?
To be honest, it actually kind of wasn't. Thanks to our very, very talented friend, Ms. Silver, she is arranging another game show panel at PAX West, and she kindly asked if I could help be her, tech panelist for that situation.
Awesome.
And yes, and I just couldn't help but step up when there was a need, especially when it comes to tech-related stuff. So yes, I will be in a PAX West panel. It's going to be on Sunday at 8 p.m. So if anyone out there is going to PAX West on late August, early September, just say hi to me. I'll be wearing a SwitchCast shirt. I'll be repping SwitchCast on the floor. You know the whole deal.
Don't they call it the Street Pass show or something like that? I think that's what she usually calls us.
It's a Street Pass game show, something like that.
Don't let the name fool you, listeners. It's basically Family Feud with Nintendo-themed questions.
And we've at least participated in stuff like this in the past, so yeah, yes. I'm just helping out Ms. Silver, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I look forward to hopefully seeing someone there. Though I do have a little bit of a predicament when it comes to PAX West.
What's the predicament?
While I do have my media badge, or I do have my special guest badge because I'm going to be on that panel, I actually need an extra set of passes for David, because he's going to be coming with me.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. But is it like already sold out or something?
Yeah, it's all fully sold out. I can't really find any other passes online that people are selling. So if anyone out there is listening and has an extra set of PAX West badges for the entire weekend, I am so down to pick those up for you. I'll buy them off of you. Definitely, no problem.
There you go, reaching out to the community.
Yeah, why not?
Definitely, definitely, it's worth it to put your radar out for that. Somebody listening has to have some situation where they got an extra ticket.
Yeah, it does happen, and if not, then it's no big deal. Well, we'll figure something out.
Actually, speaking of Seattle, I just was kind of funny. I had this in the news, but just because we're talking about that, I thought it'd be because it's not really news, but just something funny I saw this week. There was apparently this contest going around, like a lip sync contest among different police departments, and they were trying to
I saw that. Okay.
Yeah, and they were trying to lip sync to the video of Downtown. The Macklemore joint. Downtown.
All right, what is that? What is up with that?
No, it was just funny because the Seattle Police Department, their submission actually incorporated a lot of local celebrities, and one of the very brief cameos was our own Reggie Fils-Aimé in
no way.
He
really?
Actually appeared in the video for like 2-3 seconds with some Labo stuff, I think, and it's just kind of cute and funny.
That's kind of cool. To be honest, Seattle kind of had to win because I'm pretty sure Macklemore is from Seattle, so they're like, okay, we got to.
Oh, they had to up their game. Yeah, it was really well put together. This was not amateur-ish at all. They got like crowds of people, good cameras, and really recreated the scenes pretty much shot for shot. So it was pretty fun.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's stuff like that makes people, humanize the law enforcement, and that's its own situation. So good job, Seattle PD team. That's pretty cool.
Oh, and speaking of video productions. I'm actually going to put up a kind of a weird video this weekend. I want to do a little quick video on a technique I developed this week.
Technique, huh? What is up with that?
So, I posted on Patreon, on the Lens feed, actually, a shot of me during my monthly platelet donation, right? Where I'm hooked up. Right. So I'm hooked up to a machine, so I can't use one hand, for about 90 minutes, and I'm usually killing time, and it's usually pretty hard to play a Switch during that time. But, because the controllers, even with the Joy-Cons and stuff like that, you can't really grab it one-handed. There's not a lot of games. Maybe games that only use like one half a Joy-Con, I can maybe sometimes get to work that. But this week I started playing, and I was really obsessed with having to keep playing Octopath Traveler. And I wanted to get as much progress as I can, and I just couldn't turn it down. And it forced me to develop a one-handed system for using both Joy-Con. And it just kind of came to me. I was messing around with it for a while, and I actually want to show people how to do this. This could be something useful for anyone in a similar situation, or maybe someone doesn't have a hand that's capable of holding a controller.
Yeah. You know what? You're doing the world a service by allowing people to be able to do this, or helping people do this.
I hope it comes handy for somebody out there at some point. So, but the general premise I did was I separated the two Joy-Cons, halves, and I had the left Joy-Con was laying down on my lap so I used the right Joy-Con for the controls and, moving my characters. And I just kind of I rested that hand on top of the other Joy-Con, and I basically just pressed all the buttons I needed on the left Joy-Con with my right hand index finger. So I was still able to put all the buttons that I needed in the game. Now, this probably wouldn't work for a crazy action game like a Zelda, but
of course not.
Works. I was doing it perfectly smoothly for an RPG like Octopath, and it got me through a whole hour of play with this little one-handed system I use for playing it. I just thought it was just one more cool little perk of the way the Switch is set up and all the modular ways that it can be reconfigured for different situations. And I was just so happy that, I was able to still play it there instead of just being bored and having my blood drained for an hour.
That's pretty cool. I guess your PSP Monster Hunter skills came to good use in trying to figure out an obtuse control system.
Oh gosh, the PSP did definitely test all my dexterity.
Yeah, I think people tried to do stuff like the claw or some sort of weird thing to get that control scheme going. It was interesting, but I'm glad you were able to devise something.
Yeah, and you know what? Honestly, though, I want to invite people, because I've seen people with crazy systems for compensating for disabilities, and I've seen the guy who's a champion, fighting game player, and he has no hands. He plays it all with his face and tongue. And he's actually a really good Chun-Li player, but he uses nothing but his nose and mouth to control.
Right. I remember reading about that. It's incredibly good because these people have a very specific control scheme that they're only able to do. But they can have just as much mastery as anyone that is full able-bodied.
So I just want to invite anyone who has their own unique or special kind of control setup, whether it's because of you're compensating for some disability, or maybe you just have a very unusual preference
situation.
Yeah,
maybe.
Just show me what it is. I'd love to see it. Send me an email, kc@theswitchcast.com. I would just love to showcase some more of these ideas if anyone else has come up with anything like that. So that's that. Also, going from one type of tournament fighters to our own, we had a few tournaments over the weekend.
Ooh, yeah. Let me know how that went.
Well, actually, I'm sorry. I will say we only had one. We had people show up for Pocket Rumble, but a lot of people backed out because, and I heard this from a lot of people, so I'm not actually singling anybody out, but a lot of people told me that they were they had second thoughts because they didn't feel they could win. and they didn't want to participate because of that.
That's actually kind of a bit of a trap situation.
I realize, because I guess fighting games are just a little more intimidating than
absolutely.
any other kind of tournament.
Even fighting games like Pocket Rumble, where it's supposed to be as simple an input as possible for beginners, the fact that you're facing off against someone one-on-one, you're the only person who's really responsible for whether you win or lose, that can be intimidating to a lot of people.
So that's why I decided, for at least the next couple weeks, what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to have a regular thing. Tuesday training nights. Basically, every Tuesday, I'm going to make myself available, and a couple of our other experienced players have agreed we're going to show up, and any Tuesday night, you want to come down to the Pocket Rumble chat in our Discord and play with us. And we're going to try to basically up everyone's games, and we're going to purposely play in a way that kind of like analyzes and shares information and help people to get better in a low, no pressure, friendly environment. And I just want to hope to break down that barrier, because a lot of people have picked up the game actually so far, and they've been saying it's fun and they've been enjoying it. And that's why I was a little surprised that so many of them were like, oh yeah, but I'm not ready to like compete. And so I think we need to start breaking down that stigma, and we're going to start with these training nights. So anyone who's interested, definitely come on down and join us for that.
I actually really think it'd be a good idea for the community to do something like this. Not even just for Pocket Rumble. It can be for any game out there that has competitive elements to it. I do implore everyone to, be friendly with each other, and if there's any skill that any of our community members want to practice, train with each other, schedule something to improve and practice. I think training Tuesdays would be a really cool thing to keep going.
Yeah. But we did get off the day after the Mario Tennis Aces tournament, and that actually attracted a lot of people. We had about at least 12 people show up for that.
Yeah, considering how quick the announcement was to the actual tournament event, that is pretty good.
Yeah, and so we had and they were very positive. People were, all skill levels showed up, and then we had a lot of fun. It was a double elimination tournament, and it was, as we mentioned though, right after the balance update that nerfed some of the powers of Bowser Jr. in particular, and to a lesser extent the Waluigi. So it was interesting to see how people felt that was affected. And I do want to report that the general consensus was, at least right now, all the people who seem to have been really good with Bowser Jr. Are taking a steep dive, whether that just means it's balanced or that these people will get back on their feet and remaster this character in the future is up to see. But so far, it sounds like it's been a good adjustment.
Honestly, this type of situation happens a lot when specific characters get balanced. Like in games like League of Legends or Smash or anything like that. If what people call one tricks, where one person is very dependent on the skill and capabilities of a single character, if that character gets nerfed, a lot of the win rates for those players drop drastically, just because a lot of those people are taking advantage of what makes that character unbalanced or broken. So ultimately, I'm glad that this is a thing, and I'm glad I even heard that they nerfed trick shots in a way as well, and made that less of a guaranteed viable option. So
I think in particular the trick shots that go behind were
which is the worst trick shot. Honestly, I think that's the one that encompasses and causes the biggest problems for the standard game.
And what a lot of people also seem to be complaining about, but was definitely less effective now, is the way that the flying characters, or at least the ones that could levitate, could charge up shots while moving. That gave them a really powerful advantage. Yeah, that was something that seemed to be a big problem as well. So, and also in an amazingly cool class act by Dragonflame, for the final round, it was him versus BD82. And for the final round, he volunteered to use Toad, who is, I guess, considered to be like one of the lower tier characters in the game right now. And BD82, I believe he was using Bowser Jr. That's what he played me against with during the competition. So I think he used Bowser Jr., but it was him as Bowser Jr. versus Dragonflame with Toad, and he used Toad to win the tournament, actually, in a very class kind of like act and a cool, fun gesture at the end there. So,
yeah. So naturally, our champion Dragonflame, I'm assuming he was the one who stood victorious in this tournament.
Dragonflame 323 was the winner. BD82 was our runner-up, and Decoy DW did make a third place appearance there and had a valiant fight all the way to the end there. But everybody who showed up, it was really fun. I spent most of the time there playing people who got knocked out of the tournament, and then we just all kind of made our own little random games wherever we could and just kept playing while there was. It was just, that was the main thing, is people just seem to enjoy the getting together, and now let's just play as much as we can while we're all here, and we're waiting to see who wins the tournament overall.
Yeah, and that's something that I really want to stress for any future tournaments or events that we host or that are a part of the Discord community. Our tournaments are a gigantic excuse to get a bunch of people who enjoy a single game to play with each other. You don't necessarily have to be really good. You don't necessarily have to be gunning to win. But it's just a great time for everyone to converge, to play the game with a bunch of like-minded folks at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and it reminds me, though, I do have to give Dragonflame his $20 eShop gift card for winning, so I do hope I will have sent him that code before this episode gets posted. So thank you for your patience there, and congratulations.
He is our trump card after all. If we have any gaming bullies out there, we're going to sick a Dragonflame 323 on them. So, just as a quick reminder, everyone, we do have a Patreon that we definitely appreciate people contributing to. It's patreon.com/theswitchcast. Any way you contribute, any amounts, is really helpful. We really appreciate it, and it's what we use to keep the servers running. Thanks to all the current Patreon members, and if there's any future ones out there, thank you in the future as well.
So let's go switch over into the game time, and let's talk a little bit about what we've been playing.
Absolutely, let's do it.
Game time! JV, what has fate dealt us this week that you've been playing?
Oh, I like that a lot. I've actually been playing an incredibly unique game called Hand of Fate 2. Have you heard of this before, Casey?
I have only heard of it. I got this confused, actually, when I first heard the name. What was the one? I think I got it confused with Eye of Judgment, the card game with the camera that read what you had in front of you.
Oh, right. I loved Eye of Judgment. But that is something completely different. That is an augmented reality card game battle, 1v1.
It was in the same genre, and it was amazingly close in terms of the fact that it's like a tabletop game, right?
Yeah, it is a tabletop game, but instead of a card battling tabletop game, Hand of Fate 2 is a unique blend of action and tabletop RPGs with a bit of a mini game compilation thrown into the mix. So it's a very, very unexplored space, and I absolutely love this. So if you don't already know, this is a RPG game at heart, and the entire aesthetic is based on you being in front of a table with essentially a dungeon master right in front of you, dealing out cards for you to that represent encounters for you to run into.
It kind of gives me like that vibe of like Clash of the Titans, like where you're like this godlike figure moving your pawns across the table and like watching them do battle as you like send them off.
Yeah, it has that similar aesthetic, except you just have a single figure that represents yourself on the board. The dealer lays out a bunch of cards on the table, and your figure moves from one card to an adjacent card to an adjacent card. And every single adjacent card that you go to represents a type of encounter that you may be able to make.
Okay. Now, are you actually like choosing like where the character moves, or is that like just a cinematic kind of like a dramatic flourish to it?
You can choose where you're going to move, and that essentially allows you to choose the path that you're going through the table.
Cool.
So if you're in the bottom left card, you can choose to move up or choose to move right, and then you can either backtrack or you can just keep progressing based on all of your resources, etc. And each encounter is broken up into different chapters, which have kind of an overarching story that goes through it.
So what is the general story then? So there is like a general storyline to this?
Each chapter has its own general story. Like there's characters that you interact with. There's a setting that you deal with. But the pathways and the storytelling itself is handled a lot like a choose-your-own-adventure game. So you're given a scenario. Once the card is flipped over, it describes what the situation is and a number of ways for you to deal with a situation. One of the first encounters that you open is that you walk up to a parade, and there's a lot of folks enjoying themselves, and you have a couple of options about how to interact with this parade. Do you partake in the festivities, or do you lean back and watch the civilians? And if you lean back, then you might like thieves that you see are doing something bad. If you partake, you might see something else going on. And from there,
cool.
You either handle the thieves, you maybe join the thieves in their thievery, or you let them do their thing. And it's a branching pathways to decide how your encounters work.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. And as you open up flip over each card as you step through your, dungeon, the different encounters are represented in different, I would count them as mini games, but they do have a very tabletop feel. So
okay.
A lot of some of the situations require you to throw dice, and that determines whether you succeed in doing something. Just like in a tabletop Dungeons and Dragons encounter, some of the actions that you choose to do require you to roll a dice to see if you succeed or fail. And that's something that's really cool too. There's also a card swapping mini game where if you're maybe looking for something in the story, the cards swap around and you have to pick up one of the cards, and that card determines the outcome. And so that
is it like a shell game thing? Are you supposed to follow the card?
Yeah,
that you
it's like
want?
a shell game situation where you see all of the results of the cards, then it flips down, shuffles, and then you choose a card based on maybe you keeping an eye on the cards, or it's random, but you see what the results are.
Cool.
So a lot of what makes you succeed or fail are based on these tabletop-like mechanics that really are interesting to play in a digital game like Hand of Fate 2.
Okay. Now, does action break out every so often here?
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the encounters require you to actually go into combat. For example, in the situation that I mentioned previously, I actually chose, naturally, as a man of justice myself, I chose to fight those thieves in order to, drive them away. And that takes you into a third-person combat scenario where you're actually in a third-person action game confined into a little space, and you're fighting off enemies with a sword and a shield. The combat itself is actually very similar to Batman and Shadow of Mordor, where you do attacks, dodges, parries, special attacks, sword attacks, and finishers. So whenever you're put into actual combat, you're fighting. You're doing a third-person action game.
And it feels pretty fleshed out?
I wouldn't say it's super fleshed out, but it's a very competent. The control scheme is very similar to a lot of the action trends nowadays. And once you defeat the foes, you get pulled back out of the scene and you're returned to the tabletop space where you continue your choose your own adventure space from there. And I gotta say, I really love the mix between third-person combat and tabletop dungeon crawl, because you're not exploring in the natural sense, but you are exploring the story and the world by going through all of those different cards.
Now is this a preset story, or is this something that's randomly like kind of put together based on the card draw? Is it like a set story that you're going through?
It definitely is. Has very specific built missions, or I think they're called challenges, and they are self-contained. They do have an endless mode where you can just continuously do encounters at random, and that lets you just continue playing for as long as you want. But there are different chapters that have a set beginning and end.
So it's like a self-contained, like a short story, sort of.
Yeah, essentially, yes. And it's really interesting. I love the concept of this game, and I love how the aesthetic pulls from that fantasy aesthetic, but it also plays to the tabletop gamer at heart, and I just love seeing that fusion. Just because I love how the tabletop mechanics really kind of determine your fate and somewhat randomizes what you're going to encounter.
So do you feel like that gives it a lot of replayability, or once you beat a challenge, you feel like, all right, I don't really think I need to play that again?
No, I do think there is replayability in this game, just because there is that endless mode. You can go through different challenges in different ways, and you can die in the middle of your encounter, and once you die, you have to start over from the beginning and go through the whole situation.
Interesting. Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah. And as you continue through the encounters, you do pick up loot and get better items, get more food to heal yourself. And since your life is actually quite a precious resource, there are a lot of situations where I found that I did not want to go into combat just because of how, risky it is on my life to be put into that situation.
I'm looking at some of the screenshots here. It does look like the different challenges go into a lot of different settings as well. I see that there's like a, kind of a mountainous, icy place where one of these stories is taking place, and then there's like a one section almost kind of looks like a Assassin's Creed kind of setting. Yeah.
Absolutely. There are a lot of settings that you can explore, and there is kind of an overview map that looks a little bit like the toy Game of Thrones opening map that you see in the beginning of each Game of Thrones episode. It's something that you look over, and then you can choose kind of the location where each challenge is set. But overall, I really, really dig this game. And if you're a fan of tabletop role-playing games, but you want the combat to be legitimately an action RPG style combat, and you want this experience on the go, Hand of Fate 2 is $30, and I feel like it's worth that price. It's such a unique experience. It's such a unique card building hybrid game that I feel like is an unexplored genre.
And it seems like due to the nature of the kind of modular nature of the different challenges, I think they've actually, while this was out on Steam, it's had content updates. I think more like stages and challenges were added to it over time. So it is possible that down the road, if you do get into this and you do play through it, you might get more stuff to download in the future even too. So
yeah.
Very cool. Very good. I'm glad that they reviewed this, because it's something unique, and it kind of has a cool atmospheric, and I get that dungeon mastery kind of vibe from it too. That's not been done often enough.
Oh yeah, it's weird that they brought over Hand of Fate 2 instead of bothering to bring over Hand of Fate 1. But I'm just glad that this genre is now available on the Switch. The Switch is the perfect platform.
All right, so I just wanted to... I wished I got to some of my download codes earlier in the week, but I just now got my code for Hello Neighbor, which I'll be playing for next week, as well as today Paladins went free to play, and I just downloaded it, but it took me the last 2 hours just to get the game on my Switch. So I haven't played anything new this week.
But I do want to hear about your progress with Octopath Traveler. How is that going?
I feel like I've shifted into the second phase of the game now, because I just finished collecting all the 8 characters of the game, right? And so I kind of ventured around the center of the map. All the characters are mine, and I'm in an interesting situation now. I feel that the game has transitioned from... I kind of felt like I was in a fairly linear path, and I was here, I talked about how it was all those chapter ones, right? It was like I got to do a little dungeon, I'd see somebody's intro story, get them on my team, repeat. I'd go to the next dungeon, I'd recruit a character, so on and so forth. Now that I have them all, the world suddenly feels a lot bigger.
Oh,
because
really?
There's a lot of sections of the map that just aren't explored yet. And it's very clear that I can go to a lot of different places. Not only that, a lot of the places I can go, I could just explore a bunch of sections of the map, because I did stumble upon, while like peeking around, a few places that were a little higher than my level should have allowed me, but with a little bit of tactics and perseverance and generous item use, I survived. But I stumbled upon one of the features of the game where you could find these shrines that unlock the sub-job abilities. Like, I can now give any of my characters the apothecary sub-job, or I can make someone a warrior if I want as their secondary job, and start cross-training people in different classes and abilities. But finding those is a pretty important little task for me to do. So I can...
Right.
I might want to just go around hunting for all those. But I'm also very hungry to go see this chapter, this character's story over here. And then there's a lot of these side missions I'm doing too. And I found that the way they have the side missions with the path actions is fairly interesting, because they've actually found a few different ways, clever ways even, to let you utilize them to solve some of these side quests that have been going on now.
Okay, like do you have any examples of that?
Yeah,
off the top of your head?
I'll kind of half spoil one. There's interesting that I had to make a certain character look tough for somebody else, right?
Okay, interesting.
And so, but to do that, I used the challenge ability to, get him into a duel. But actually, beating him does not solve the mission. I have to lose a duel to him, so he looks tough to somebody else.
Okay.
And that's how I actually solved one of the subquests, was like by challenging him but losing the duel. And I was like, that's cool, I like that. And they actually made it a really hard fight, so like you might lose just naturally. You probably would lose naturally just trying it, unless you just really were willing to, like, I'm spending all my items, or I'm going to buff this guy up and really take it seriously. But I kind of didn't take it too seriously, and I just happened to lose the duel, and then I was like, oh, that's how you solve it.
But that's a really unique mechanic.
There's certain characters I have to take to certain places, or characters I have to help meet up, or buy a certain item that somebody needs. They're all in different ways, and it makes it a lot more interesting than the typical, I need you to go out and kill 10 of this, or I need you to get this from this dungeon. It just makes me think a little bit more, and it makes it more engrossing. So I feel like right now, the first thing I'm kind of compelled to do is clear out as many of these side quests as I can in the cities I've been to, while slowly, peeking around for those little sub-job shrines that are hidden around in the town. And then maybe I'll start hitting up those chapter 2s. But I just feel like I'm in that Zelda Breath of the Wild mentality, where I just have so many different directions I could go and things I can do, that it's really just up to my whim on a particular day what I feel like taking on. If I have a little more chunk of time, I'll go and do this character storyline. If I only have like 5-10 minutes, I'll take on a short quest, or maybe I'll go, poke my nose into a new corner of the map. It's not linear. I'm not being railroaded, and I'm just enjoying the way I can take this out at however I feel. That's where I'm at right now.
I feel like that's something that is really important when it comes to these types of JRPGs. I feel like there really needs to be some level of openness to them in order for the world to feel really fleshed out. It's
funny because I come from a background of, most of my favorite RPGs are fairly railroady, like all the Final Fantasies, like a Chrono Trigger. Like, most of those games you play maybe 70% of the way through, before you're just free to kind of like go in your own way and, you know, solve the world's problems in whatever order you see fit. This has done it really early, right? I got all the characters. I'm probably like 10% of the way through the game. But now is the freedom. That's why they did the trouble of front-loading all those storylines and getting you kind of situated with all the characters now.
So once you have all the characters and you know about them, then go hog wild in the world.
Right.
And explore it with the tool set you have.
So, I'm finding this kind of a refreshing reversal of how I usually play RPGs. And so we'll see where next week takes me, if I get as far as I want to with some of the storylines. But I definitely am going to take on at least another chapter 2 of the game.
Definitely. Take us on your Octopath travel, Casey.
Yes, thank you. All right, so that's our game time. Let's go and quickly shift into the news rundown. All right, news rundown, and here are your headlines. Paladins, as I mentioned, is finally free to play, so anyone who's been holding off, they didn't want to buy that, the pack for the early access and a bunch of extra stuff, it's definitely worth checking out now and trying out this. We've called it the Overwatch of Switch, but I'm going to try to look at this game with fresh eyes and not compare it to anything, which will probably be easy for me because I've never played Overwatch.
Yeah, and from the opposite end of that spectrum, I will absolutely compare this game to Overwatch just because it is very much in the genre, and some of the things are obviously pretty inspired by that game. So whenever we fully review Paladins, you can take it from a completely fresh look, and I'll definitely
that should be fun.
From comparing it to the leading game of the genre.
I love it when we both play a game that we have, different
perspectives,
backgrounds in. Yeah, right. So
it happens pretty often, and honestly, none of this is usually unplanned. Whenever we come into this, it's usually unplanned.
But the Discord is already hopping, so if you guys want to meet up and play with other players, definitely jump into our Discord chat, link in the show notes. We have a Paladins room, and most of the people there are just looking to play with fellow buddies in the chat, so consider that.
Yeah, and it's free to play. It's free to play in a genre that's really, really big right now. So I'm glad that the Switch is exploring this.
On the topic of playing nice together, we also have a little more information regarding that new RPG Maker MV to be specific. It will be cross-play between the Microsoft Xbox and the Nintendo Switch. One more of those games that does that. But there was actually one other little thing I thought was really smart for them to add for this game that will probably make it a much more interesting investment of time for anyone who wants to create games on it.
Okay.
And that's the fact that they're also going to make available a free player for the game, basically allowing anyone who wants to play RPGs made by people. So that's usually what the biggest problem is that, let's say, I did make a game on RPG Maker a long, long time ago on SNES. But if I ever wanted someone to play it, not SNES, I keep saying that. It was on PlayStation 1. If I wanted anyone else to play it, they had to own the game too, and they had to have whatever memory card that could connect to your computer to download my files because I put the game online for people to play, or I had to have friends that would borrow my copy of the game. This makes your potential audience for making an RPG so much broader. A, cross-platform, beautiful. B, no one has to buy something to play your homemade little RPG game. So I think it's going to be great. It's going to be really enjoyable just to have lots of people who can play your game and play it freely.
Honestly, I think that's a really big deal. This is such a game changer because that barrier of entry is just gone now. There's no excuse not to download this free player. And there might be some hidden RPG Maker gems that people make out there. In fact...
there will be. Yeah. There will be. I even saw one or two brilliant little PlayStation RPGs that were made back in the day, too.
Yeah, and as we mentioned previously, if any of you all make a SwitchCast related RPG in RPG Maker MV, we will definitely play it, or at least I will.
No, you know I'm gonna have to play that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
just keep it G-rated, guys.
Yeah, of course. All right, so it looks like Dragon Ball Fighter Z or Dragon Ball Fighters.
You always do that.
Yeah, well, they're very particular about it, Casey.
Yeah.
But anyway, the game will have 1v1 and 2v2 modes on the Nintendo Switch, which is pretty cool. It looks like a beta test is coming out soon, and the date for that will be sometime in August. So I'm definitely looking forward to that.
I'm very interested now. How do you feel that the 3v3 nature of fighting games like this and like Skullgirls affects the actual gameplay? Or like, how does that make them different than games that are just purely,
1v1?
One character versus one character?
Well, there's definitely a different, interesting dynamic to it because you have a lot of 3 different character options that you could switch to. You can essentially use one character to patch up any of the weaknesses of the others, but you have to time the switches correctly or else they are going to switch into a vulnerable position. This also allows you to bench a character and that character can heal over time. And that gives you an additional dynamic of whether I should keep pressing on with this character or whether I should switch back. And it's just an additional level of mind games that you can bring into a fighting game.
Okay, and it also seems so the 3v3 also alleviates any problems you might have with, oh, I love this character, he's good, he's my favorite, but he has like 2 or 3 really bad matchups.
Yeah.
Now you could always just have like a backup who covers those matchup weaknesses.
Right. And there are some combinations that people like to use, and if there's a specific character that is overpowered, that is kind of hard countered by another character, then you can bring that in, aside from your standard characters. But in this case, it looks like on the Switch, we're getting 1v1 and 2v2 as well. And I feel like, as cool as it sounds that 1v1 and 2v2 is coming to the Switch, I feel like this is a way for them to bring in fighting while alleviating some of the technical requirements of having 6 characters loaded at once.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, so yeah, it still has 3v3, but
right.
Yeah, I could see that being a way to like lighten the load on the system, maybe. Yeah.
Honestly, Dragon Ball Fighters is a really gorgeous game, and I want this to play in 60 frames per second, or at least have a steady frame rate, just because of how pretty it is and how true to the anime aesthetic it is. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Anything that can help with the performance is good.
I saw an interesting promotion for a game that's coming out soon. It's called Cycle 28. It's kind of like an asteroids type, spaceship shoot 'em up game where you play this character who's in, a spaceship fighting off this alien fleet, but she's kind of trapped in a time loop. So each time she either dies or I think even if you do well, it's just kind of like this endless loop where you keep fighting the same armadas over and over again. It's an endless kind of fight game. But the developers have this interesting little promotion where apparently they've woven into the game hints of the storyline as to why this character's here and how she gets out of the cycle. And they're offering to anyone who can actually figure out the mystery behind the cycle of this time loop will win the company's entire game catalog for life, basically. Any games that they release will be made available to the person who figures it out. In fact, they've even said, though, this is going to be the kind of mystery that no one person could probably solve. Like, you're going to have like a team of people talking on Reddit, exchanging information,
right.
Digging up theories and stuff. So whoever actually gets picked as a winner will be able to nominate 5 other people who also will be considered winners of it with them for helping them out.
Yeah, so that's definitely an interesting way to promote their game. Because if you're looking at it, it is an asteroid style game, and it does look like it could be fun, but it does look fairly simple. And adding this story element and adding this maybe hype and external story activity is a good way to make your game stand out, even if the fundamental gameplay looks fairly similar to what's out there already.
Yeah. So anyway, it's something. I'm the kind of person who kind of gets suckered into these things.
Oh, you totally are, KC.
Oh yeah. I mean, look, I watch game theory all the time. I like the people who pick apart the little details and try to understand the deeper, especially in these kind of games like this. I'll definitely follow and see if anyone pulls this apart. And if I come up with a fun theory, maybe I'll drop it somewhere on Reddit just to see if it gets picked up.
It's a good way to promote people to pick up your game, that's for sure.
Oh, so JV, yes, you did pick up Mega Man X Legacy this week, right?
Mega Man. Yes, I absolutely did. I'm gonna have my review. Yes. It's coming. I'm telling you guys that much.
Now that came with a soundtrack in there too. Was it like a collector's edition, or was that just in certain?
No, this is just the soundtrack separately.
Oh, okay. It didn't come with it.
Yeah, I was like, wait, am I missing something?
Yeah, I was going to say, okay, I wasn't sure if this came with it. Okay, so apparently the soundtrack, which was sold separately for this game, just included a little a teaser, a hint in this timeline of Mega Man X games in there. They had one blank slot that just said the story of X's fight is not over yet. And they had similar teasers like this in previous collector's editions and different art books and stuff. And usually when these came out, within a month or two, they announced a new game in the series. And so this seems like it's a flag saying that we're going to be announcing X9 in the next couple of months, which would be great because as much as I love all those, those new Mega Man games that were made, X I felt was where it's at.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'd love to hear more on that from you next week. But, I would love to see if Mega Man X9 does get revealed.
I would so love that because Capcom's gotten really, really good with figuring out what people want with Mega Man. The original Mega Man 8 and 9, or the original Mega Man 9 and 10, I thought those are great. And then now that Mega Man 11's coming out soon, it looks like it's something that people really want. And I want that same team to work on a Mega Man X8. That would be really good. All right, so the Rocket League developer Psyonix, for the sake of transparency, apparently revealed the specific drop rates for their loot crate system. Looking at this, it looks like rare items are 55%.
Funny note, though, rare is the lowest level of rarity in the game.
Yeah, so it's the most common. Why are they doing it like that? But rare items are 55%. Very rare, 28%. Import items are 12%. Exotic items, 4%. Black market item is 1%. So they are laying out all the percentages and the chances that you would get a specific type of item.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate it. It's kind of an anti-whale-ism. I feel like I just get frustrated as a casual investor in some games. I'm never the guy who spends $100 on a game with any kind of loot box. But sometimes I want to throw them a bone. I want to spend $5 or $10 if I really like a game on it. But I get frustrated when I feel like I got nothing of value for my money. I want to know that all right, what can I expect to get? And knowing that 55% of my things I buy are going to be the most common items. At least I go in, I know what I'm paying for. And right. I think that's the biggest problem people have with loot boxes is the mystery and the fact that when you don't know, I feel like it's all the more compelling to people,
Right,
just keep spending until they hit that jackpot, not knowing how. And these aren't even that bad a rarity, distributions, but when you don't know, it just kind of feeds that mental addiction to keep putting in more until you get the payout that you want.
Yeah, and a lot of times people might expect if I have spent $10 worth of money and I haven't gotten anything, I'm sure the next $11th dollar is going to get me that thing. And then you just keep going and going and going until you get the thing you want, but then you spent quite a bit of money.
Yeah. Anyway, I think it's good. Anything, a lot more companies definitely are going to have to do that because that whole pay plan is under attack right now in the industry.
Yeah. It's loot crates as a term and as a practice are becoming a little bit faux pas. Yeah. But, when it comes to cosmetics, I personally am a lot more lenient.
All right, so I have to admit, and I usually don't cover, like, here's just some new screenshots of a game or something like that, but I am officially into Digimon Survive. Like,
really?
They just revealed some screenshots and a little bit of gameplay footage, and no, I think I'm all aboard this game. I am officially looking forward to playing this game as soon as I can.
Yes, because it does look like it's a bit of a mix between a visual novel and a kind of turn-based RPG.
A tactics game, even.
Yeah.
The battles play out. So this almost fulfills that system switch that I wanted before, where I said I wanted the Pokemon tactics
Conquest.
game. Yeah, Pokemon Conquest to come to Switch, right?
Yeah.
This isn't too far off, right? The Digimon characters doing the same kind of thing is great. But it also mixes, visual novel elements with great big, beautiful artwork and choose your own adventure options where you get to, affect the story and the battles based on choices you make. The art just looks really nice, and I think that the whole Digimon franchise in general is one that I got into at the most. I think it was season 3 of the series where they got the most serious. At least, I don't know where they went past that, but I liked where it went. I liked that they dealt with real world-ish kind of issues where like in Pokemon, and obviously I'm not someone who's ever going to diss Pokemon, but in Pokemon they just kind of go off and they do whatever adventures they want, and I can't really relate to those characters in that world as much. But in the Digimon story, they actually had to do things like, I'm going to go off on an adventure for like a few months. I'm going to have to get off time from school. And oh my God, my parents are not going to be cool with this. I'm going to have to like really convince and deal with real world issues in order to go on my magical monster adventure.
The Digimon franchise as a whole, it seems to really be starting to trend towards more adult themes. Just because they probably understand that their biggest fan base right now isn't necessarily children. It's teens and young adults that grew up with Digimon. Like Digimon Tri. Have you heard of Digimon Adventure Tri, Casey?
I've heard of it. Never played, though.
Yeah. No, it's the new movies that explore the characters from the original first 2 seasons.
Okay.
And it's them as, younger, like, I guess in high school and early college type age. And they explore some really dark themes and really mature themes, which I was very surprised by. This whole Digimon franchise is really trending towards that age group, which I dig quite a bit.
I think it fills that, and maybe it was intentionally so, that it kind of fills that hunger of a lot of people who are into the monster collecting type games who have wanted more mature stories or a little deeper kind of interactions.
And I wouldn't necessarily say they're mature as in dark, grim, gory, but they explore some real emotions and real situations.
And I think just the Digimon setting in general opens itself a little bit more towards that because of the fact that since the Digimon themselves can speak and can actually have a conversation with their, what do they call them, trainers or not trainers? Yeah. What do you call them? Your Digimon master?
There's the Digidestins, Tamers, Digimon.
Yeah, we'll call them partners. Tamers. I think, they're partners. You can actually speak with them and they have their own kind of personalities that, can be more directly, addressed in the story. So
absolutely.
That's something I've always advised. But I've never gotten into too many of the games. I've just felt the games in general got too convoluted and a little weird, and I wasn't always taken with the art styles. So this looks like it's totally addressing a lot of my hang-ups with the series while emphasizing the things I really liked about the series.
Yeah, there's always been that dichotomy between Pokemon and Digimon, where Digimon was understood to have the better anime, but the much worse games, while Pokemon was having the superior games but the much worse anime. And it looks like both sides of the spectrum are catching up with each other a little bit.
Yeah,
so
they are.
So it's really cool that we're just getting really solid franchises, a monster battling franchise.
I want to get more of those Pokemon Legends anime coming out.
Absolutely. So, well, as kind of was expected, it looks like for the Splatfest, Team Squid won out over Team Octopus.
Congratulations, Squidlings and Inklings. Though my prediction did come true. I did say that the Octolings would definitely be the more popular. They would win the popular vote, and they did by a pretty considerable margin, 56 to 44%. I mean, in terms of these votes, that's actually a pretty significant figure. I think the only bigger one I can think of is like Mayo versus, Ketchup, which was like totally lopsided.
Yeah, absolutely. And so ultimately Team Squids win. Go Squids.
Congrats, guys.
Yeah, for sure.
In a little bit of, I don't know, I'm reluctant to say it's like just desserts because I don't know what kind of people are actually like downloading these.
Schadenfreude.
Yeah, I do take a little bit of Schadenfreude out of it though, because it seems that there was a specific hacker software that was being distributed out there that some people thought were allow them to access freely certain hacker applications that are available out there, but it was actually set up to brick people's Switches who downloaded and used this.
Yeah, so if you're looking to hack and pirate on your Nintendo Switch, this software just prevented you from playing your Switch altogether.
Yeah.
Oh,
the
that
cracked,
is so rude.
SXOS software. So, I mean, I don't want to see anyone's system get bricked, so I only mention it because I don't want people to do that. But at the same time, I don't think people should go and hack their systems and start pirating games. But at the same time, I don't want people to fall for the trap if I can help them keep this thing safe.
Yeah, so. we can't possibly be advocates for software piracy on this platform, but we also don't want people to have not working Switches. So
it's it's literally property damage. It's an application that costs you about $300 of loss. So I feel bad about that. So just be really careful, guys, and definitely think twice if you're going down that road. There's a lot of bad things that can happen.
Absolutely.
All right, so in the hardware, there's some cool new Hori controllers out there. Did you see these ones?
That's right. These are 3 GameCube controllers inspired by Nintendo franchises built by Hori. So it looks like there's a Mario, a Zelda, and a Pikachu related GameCube controllers. And what I like about them is that half of the shells for the Mario and the Pikachu ones are see-through. That's just a classic 90s aesthetic,
Yeah, the Mario one lets you see through it from the top, and the Pikachu one lets you see through it from underneath, and they're pretty cool, and I want to use that for poking.
And they look really cool. Hori is a very well-respected third-party controller provider. So I haven't actually played a Hori GameCube controller before, since I am very particular and want to stick with the official Nintendo stuff. But these aesthetically look really cool.
Yeah, they're very bright and cool.
Yeah.
In the updates, we have Yooka-Laylee, someone who actually, I remember hearing a lot of people request make an appearance in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. They're getting the next best thing, possibly. He's joining Brawl Out, for anyone who still likes that alternative to the Smash Brothers franchise.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's not Smash Bros. Ultimate, but it is a platforming fighting game, so close enough.
I do have to ask people, and I'm probably going to make this the next week's question for the Community Pulse, but so there was another update for the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and this one added Link in his Breath of the Wild tunic and a new motorcycle skin that makes it the Master Cycle Zero, which gives it the appearance of one of those like Sheikah tech kind of things,
right,
you know?
Right.
What do you think about them still updating this game now? It's been over a year. Do you think they should be making bigger updates? Do you think that they should just be like, you know what, save stuff for Mario Kart 9?
Honestly, I dig this. I'm absolutely fine with them continuing to release this type of content on Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Mario Kart 8 has been around for a long time, but it is such a strong and iconic entry in the franchise. It would be very hard to release a Mario Kart game that isn't better than 8 Deluxe, to be honest. So they can, if they use 8 Deluxe as a platform to continuously release additional content, I am down for that. I am A-okay with it.
Okay, fair enough. I guess it's always good to have just little things like this. It gives some people a reminder that the game's there, gets them loaded up again, and, keeps the community active and playing it. So, I should turn it on just to see if it's just as easy as it was, let's say 6 months ago, even, to get a group to play online with. Or is it like, a little longer waits nowadays?
Well, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is just continuously a top seller for the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah.
So I would not be surprised if it's one of the games that has a consistent online population.
I would probably say it's probably the closest thing to an evergreen title. Just something that we will never have a problem until the next Mario Kart comes out. We will never have a problem finding people to play with.
Yeah, it's just so good. It's just so solid of an entry.
All right, down the pipe, here's some games that were freshly announced for coming in the near future. We got, speaking of kart racers, Nickelodeon Kart Racers, which was announced for October 23rd. Yeah.
All right. I didn't know they still created a franchise IP-based kart racers. I thought that was a thing in the 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, and also in the 90s was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and they are also making an appearance in this game, too.
Hoo boy. All right.
I was really excited to see we got a date for Iconoclast, and that is coming out August 2nd. So that is just outside the purview of your new releases, so I'm able to talk about that. So
cool.
Hopefully I'll get my hands on this one. I've been waiting for that for a while. Irony Curtain. This is a comedy parody point-and-click adventure game where it's like, crazy Soviet nation with, ready to nuke the world. And it's kind of a little political satire point-and-click adventure game.
Yeah.
Look at the trailer. You get an idea for the funny types they have. That's 2019. Subara City, that's also coming out sometime in August. This kind of reminds me of that game. You know that game Threes on iPhone? That was a big...
Yeah. I played that a lot.
Huge addictive game this is in the similar genre of that, where it's instead of it being numbers, it's these buildings, and it's kind of like almost like a SimCity themed game where you have to match up buildings of similar types and they'll cluster together into bigger buildings, and then you try to just keep building up the different districts and monuments in the same way as like Threes. Anyway, Minecraft Story Mode Season 2 coming out August 7th. I did a review of the first season that I played a while back, and I gotta say, it's surprising how well the Minecraft setting works in the Telltale choose your own adventure kind of games. Yeah, adventure games. It was really pretty good, and I'm actually pretty excited to see what happens with the characters and how Patton Oswalt's voice is holding up. Cytus Alpha is a new rhythm game that is due out on the Switch, which is something that a lot of people have been interested in seeing more of. Speed Brawl is coming out sometime in the future. It was announced this is it's a momentum-based brawler game, and basically it kind of feels like Mirror's Edge meets side-scrolling beat-em-ups.
That's
where you have
pretty
to
cool.
keep moving forward and jumping off of things, and if you ever slow down, you kind of like lose half your abilities, so you just gotta keep running and keep the momentum going in order to punch things.
The art style kind of reminds me, for some reason, of Skullgirls.
Oh yeah, it does kind of have a feeling like that.
Yeah.
Also in the speed world, Ninja Clash of Carrots. This is a co-op action game where you're a pair of ninja anthropomorphs, and it's a kind of crazy looking high speed brawler game too, also in a similar genre. And finally, Castle Storm was announced for August 16th. This is another Zen Studios game, and they've been working on this. This is a pretty popular game actually on Steam, I think, before. This is the game where it's kind of like Angry Birds meets tower defense and invading. I don't know. There's a lot of cool stuff going on in this game, but it looks pretty cool, and it's coming to Switch, so.
Yeah, I'm glad to see more Zen Studios releasing stuff outside of the pinball games.
All right, JV, tell us, what are the new releases for the coming week?
All right, so on July 26th, we are getting ACA Neo Geo, The King of Fighters 97. We are getting Crossing Souls, Candle, The Power of Flame, The Banner Saga 3, Pixel Lines DX, 500 More Puzzles, and finally, Sleep Tight. On the 27th, we are getting Hello Neighbor, Final Light to the Prison, Go Vacation, Tiny Hands Adventure, and Element. On July 31st, we are getting Titan Quest, South Park, The Fractured But Whole, Bring the Crunch, Code of Princess EX. On August 1st, we are getting State of Anarchy, Master of Mayhem. So, quite a number of stuff, especially stuff that we've talked about previously.
All right, so let's take a breather, and we'll be right back with the Community Pulse. Right, Community Pulse, and this week we asked you, listeners, basically, what would you kickstart? I've noticed a lot of interesting and big variety of different Kickstarter projects, ranging from peripherals to a few different game concepts, and though I feel like Kickstarter still generally doesn't draw a lot of console players to their products, just in general. So right. I'm curious to hear what kind of things would get you excited and maybe get someone to put down some money on a future project, whether it be a certain type of game that they feel is missing, or is there a peripheral that they'd be looking forward to? So why don't you read one that you like here from the responses?
All right, so starting with Elvis Sanchez, he says, usually strange or interesting peripherals will get me to back up a Kickstarter, especially if it's a decent price. I just back up that Switch grip that holds your Switch vertically because it was only $15 and looked promising. As for games, most of the time I usually back up platformers or Metroidvania games, since those tend to come with a bunch of creativity in mind. Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. I think price point is a really important aspect of Kickstarters, because if something seems like they are asking for more than what the product is worth, people are not likely to back it as much.
It's also just the fact that if I'm putting down a lot of money now, and you have to usually wait at least 6 months for the product to get to you, it's very hard, even if it's something I think I'm going to want, it's very hard to convince me to put down $50+ and not get something for a long time.
And with Kickstarter, there's always the concern that you might not even get the product itself.
It's very rare in Kickstarter. I will say that I'm not a big fan of things like Indiegogo has different policies, and I feel like you're a lot more at risk of things falling flat on something like that or some of those other things. But I feel like Kickstarter, I personally, I've dealt with some delays. I've dealt with some people who've maybe didn't get the right rewards to me on time. I've had a few problems on the many Kickstarters I've backed, but I've always gotten the main thing I've backed for. Whatever I paid for, I eventually have gotten myself, though I know some people have had some issues. Mighty Number 9. Here and there.
Yeah, that's for me. My concern with Kickstarters are always based on whether the end product meets the promises of the campaign itself. That's my primary concern. Most of the Kickstarters I've backed have succeeded and have given a product that I've come to expect and enjoy. But that's just something that's on the back of my mind continuously.
All right, I have to read. I called dibs.
You totally called dibs.
Robert Andujar basically stole from my soul this one here. An amiibo-infused card game, whether TCG, action deck building based or board game / tabletop based like Mario Party. I'd like to see a game that infuses cards with games like what we saw in Yu-Gi-Oh! And what the Eye of Judgment tried to succeed with on the PS3.
Yes.
It's funny that the Eye of Judgment came back up on this episode that we just kind of randomly talked about that series.
Yeah. It's a wonderful coincidence. And you are absolutely speaking our language, Robert. This is something that we would love. I would love that. And when it comes to amiibos have NFC chips built into it. Being able to have maybe like a tabletop setting where you can place the amiibos and they come to life on screen, maybe have some sort of strategy, tactic style game with that would be super cool. There's so much stuff.
You know what's already out there that just kind of also ties into this? There is that card game, the level 99 card game, BattleCon, that people reskinned, and that's the game that if anyone looks up on Kotaku did the article on the game that, BattleCon reskinned to use amiibos and featured all the different, Nintendo characters instead of it. That game has a digital version that's coming out actually on Steam soon and mobile. And, if they could just adapt that and then put that on the Switch and then have it kind of work with the amiibos in some way, that would just fulfill all this, because that's a really fun game. I'm a big fan of everything from level 99 there, but I think that would be a nice way to achieve this dream.
Yeah. I definitely think that'd be really cool. Or, just a completely different game altogether.
Yeah, something original fine too. But, that's the kind of thing I could see. It's just it doesn't require too many moving parts. It can incorporate the amiibo in an interesting boards fashion. And it helps with all the tracking of all the different counters and HP and stuff that makes that game a little clunky for some people to manage.
So from Lawson Culver, he says, it has to meet a need. I recently backed the Flip Grip Vertical Grip and the Genki Bluetooth adapter. Both of them resolve issues I've had using the Switch. I'm wary of backing the software, as I've been burned in the past. I'm more likely to just pay full price for that once it comes out than to back a game on Kickstarter. I definitely agree with that. I think there are a few shortcomings that the Nintendo Switch has that adapters and accessories can resolve, and that's one of the big reasons for you to back a Kickstarter. And I have a pretty similar mindset to Lawson when it comes to software. I feel like I don't need to back software because eventually it's going to come out and I'll just buy it then.
I like this one from the Twitter. The Casual Cleric suggested Joy-Con Pro. Split a Pro controller in half and make it slide onto the sides of the Switch like a Joy-Con.
Wow. Okay. That seems cool.
That's not a bad idea. I mean, that's pretty cool. It would take some adapting, but I think that actually is something that I could see someone making.
Yeah, I can see it too. It'd be pretty funny. So from Jacob Prow, he says, I've been waiting over 3 years for a bottle of hot sauce I backed on Kickstarter. I'm never backing anything again. What? Hot sauce? Come on. Why haven't they delivered on that yet? 3 years. How long does it take to deliver a hot sauce recipe? No.
You should have backed a bottle of awesome sauce instead.
Awesome sauce? Awesome sauce is totally better than hot sauce?
Can be?
It can be. It is pretty awesome. Hot can be pretty garbage.
All right. Guys, just a reminder, if you ever want to participate in the Community Pulse and answer next week's question, just visit our Facebook or Twitter pages. I always post the questions Wednesday evenings or late afternoon, and you can fill in whatever you want there, and if it's interesting enough, I'll read it on the show. So let's move over and close the night out with our System Switch. And I'll actually kick this one off because there was a game on iPhone that released recently was, well, you're going to be familiar with what it's a sequel to. The game is called 6 Ages, Ride Like the Wind. And this is a sequel to a game that I think originally released maybe 15, 20 years ago or something like that, called King of Dragon Pass.
Oh, Casey, you were obsessed with that.
It's one of my it's possibly my favorite iPhone game, period. But they just this month released this sequel, 6 Ages, Ride Like the Wind. It's a similar kind of game, but again, these are a combination of strategy, management, visual novel game, where I've always described them as the Dothraki simulators. This one has a little bit more of a Mongol horde kind of a theme.
Those mongrels.
Where you generally lead a tribe of like a warrior people, and you have to manage your relations with your brother tribes. You have politics. There's fantasy stories. You have to worship the different gods, give sacrifices, journey into the realms of the gods, defeat different rivals, forge an alliance, create a new clan, all sorts of awesome, very mythical inspired things, and just an unlimited supply almost of these random encounters that happen. There's so many of these events that occur that you get to make a decision, and you have to try to solve these different like unexpected events, and you have to make a decision like, oh, we've discovered this cave with all these flesh-eating rat monsters in it. Should we send in the warriors to slay them? Should we try to just close off the cave and hope they go away? Should we ignore it? Or should we have our trickster mage lure them into one of our neighbors' realms?
Yeah.
You know, like you could do all these sorts of things, and they have crazy repercussions, things that don't come back to haunt you for many years of game time. And it's like you'll do something now, maybe like, you know, you can arrange a marriage between your one of your people and a neighboring tribe, and then like 7 years later in the game, the child of that like marriage that you arrange might come to you for something and telling you, oh, I'm now the destined one for this mission. I need you to give me your blessing to go and slay this dragon. All right. You know, like things like that happen in this game all the time. It's beautiful. I love it. Anyway, I want to play the sequel to it and just get more of that action going.
Yeah. And that sounds like something that would really fit on the Switch quite well.
Yeah. A lot of visual novels I feel have just because of that the screen and the touch screen ability would just work easily with it.
Yeah. All right. So from my side, last week we talked about MTG Arena, and this week I wanted to feature actually one of my favorite card games, digital card games out right now. It's called Gwent. Have you heard of Gwent before, Casey?
No, I have not.
Okay, so Gwent is actually the card game mini game that came from the Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. That got so popular, the CD Projekt Red spawned its own game based on The Witcher. So it is a face-to-face 1v1 card game, just like what you'd expect from Magic or Hearthstone, etc. But what's special about Gwent is that you're not fighting the opponent directly. The object of the game is to use your cards, play them down, and amass an army with a point total that's larger than the opponent. So each card has a power value, and once you place it down, that card is contributing that power value to your overall total. There's 3 different rows that you can place cards in. The one is the front row for melee. There's the middle row for ranged, and the back row for siege weapons. So each row has its own dedicated type of card that you play onto it. And there's no cost to play anything. So you can play everything regardless of its power value. Now, the caveat to this game is that you and your opponent have the same amount of cards, but oftentimes the order of what you play is very important. Because if you put down a powerful card immediately, they might play a weak card that has a skill that can kill something, and that would kill that too. But if you hold off too long, you might not have time to play that powerful card and take advantage of whatever skill it has. So ultimately, this is a game based on card advantage instead of dealing direct damage to the opponent, which is incredibly different. The game only takes place in 3 rounds at most. So you keep playing down cards until you get a certain power value, and then once both players pass, whoever has the highest value wins that round, and then you move on to the next one. So it's a different change of pace for card games, and I like that it's a head-to-head card game that's not directly attacking the opponent.
Cool. All right, awesome choice. I'll definitely check that out, actually.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
All right, well, that is our show. I hope everybody enjoyed it, and I hope you'll tune in next week. But until that time,
switch it up.
Thanks for listening. You can support the SwitchCast by visiting us at patreon.com/theswitchcast and join the review crew by rating us and subscribing on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Also, check out our Discord chat where we have an enthusiastic bunch of Switch fans in a family-friendly environment. Also, join our Facebook group for daily discussion and quite a bit of activity towards the Switch itself.
You can also contact us directly via email at kc@theswitchcast.com and jv@theswitchcast.com. Talk to us on Twitter @theswitchcast.
Thank you, HeatleyBros, for the theme music. And check us out on our website at theswitchcast.com, where we will post all relevant links and show notes.
Promotional considerations provided by publishers in the form of review copies of games.
Give me just a second, please. Casey, hold on. Well, alright, so I just double-checked my box, and no, it did not come with a soundtrack. I got excited for a second.
That's funny.
I thought I missed
it. Sorry if I made you think you lost something.
Oh my god. It's okay.